City Center Radio. It is episode 297, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Friday, September 27th, 2024. We've got a tropical storm, currently a hurricane, but likely to, downgrade back to a tropical storm coming our way. Well, I guess maybe some of the outer bands associated with it. So far, it looks like we are going to not get the brunt of this storm, whatever it is, once it, once it makes landfall and travels over land for a little bit. It does not appear that it's coming our way, but we are expected to have, some inclement weather, lots of rain, be prepared for possible tornadoes like we saw in places like Monk's Corner and Isle of Palms and a couple other places with the last storm we went through. Also be aware of flash flooding. Those are the two biggest concerns at this moment, at least according to weather reports on Thursday afternoon when I'm recording this. So definitely keep an eye on local weather, the trusted names, that you always go to in these situations. Be careful on social media with what accounts are posting. Check to see if they are an official account, number one. And then number two, check the date stamp and, so you can see what date the update was published and what time of day it was published. Because you know how sometimes with social media, you're not seeing the most up-to-date information necessarily. You might just be seeing something that's popular, that had been retweeted or interacted with several hours earlier. And so it's keeping it towards the top of your feed. So just keep those things in mind. I always try to put that disclaimer out there. I wish that wasn't the case with social media. That's a topic for another day. So just, be aware. But at this moment, it does appear that that's what we're looking at. Rain over, right now I'm listening to it as I'm recording this right out my window, trying so hard not to nap this afternoon, but just perfect nap rain right now. But it might, we might have long periods of rain. It might pick up a little bit. And again, at the moment, the biggest concerns are flash flood, as well as potentially tornadoes. So just be safe, have a plan in place. There's all sorts of resources that you can find through, City of Charleston, the county, the state of South Carolina, and also, national weather organizations will have, different resources and tips and stuff available for you. So stay safe. Try to stay dry. I hope everything goes okay. Obviously, I'm after that last episode, you may remember the flooding that happened in my upstairs bathroom. I'm just hoping that I don't have any more, water issues. So hopefully no flooding or anything worse than that, of course. But just hoping that me and the inside of my place stays nice and cozy and dry. And I hope the same happens for you. So just be safe out there. Just putting that at the top of the episode. Things could have changed by the time you hear this on Friday. So again, just, keep your eye on the local news organizations, whether TV, radio, newspaper, and also, of course, national weather organizations like, the Weather Channel or the NOAA's, social media feeds and websites and stuff like that. Lots of places that you can get information that's reliable. So just make sure you're doing that. And again, stay safe. Other than that, nothing else to talk about besides the latest news. So let's get into it. Well, it appears National Nancy, a.k.a. Representative Nancy Mace, was just not getting enough attention recently. And so she had tried to drum up some attention for herself. I'm not going to dive into it too far. It's ridiculous. She decided to share a screenshot of a text message that exchange that she had with a panelist from CNN. He was one of the people who alluded to her being racist when she was mispronouncing Vice President Kamala Harris's name wrong on purpose. And made some other comments. She made a whole thing about that CNN panel interview discussion, whatever you want to talk about it when it happened. For some reason, she drummed this back up. And in the exchange, it was a picture of her and the commentator next to each other, smiling, normal picture. I think he sent it to her or she sent it to him so they would both have it. And then he made some comment like, oh, don't tell anybody, but we actually look kind of good next to each other or together or something like that. And she basically was trying to use this to say, like, oh yeah, he was mean to me on the air, but look at him being nice here. And which you could say the same for her, but obviously she doesn't care. And was trying to make it a big story, saying she's got messages from him, with him complimenting her looks or hitting on her or something. And she tried to make hay out of this whole thing, and no one really seemed to care. And for the most part, people are just calling her out for ridiculous, like high schoolish behavior. She also didn't provide any other proof of these supposed, other messages that he sent, which makes you think, okay, they aren't any. Uh, if she was so willing to share this one post, which wasn't even a big deal to begin with, uh, it was just silly. It was like, oh yeah, he says this stuff on the air, but then is being nice behind the scenes. Like, so, like, yeah, that happens all the time in TV news. It's not that shocking. It happens a lot of times with politicians and people in media, where one might call out the other, but they're buddy buddy when they're off the record, and it was ridiculous. Well, that wasn't doing it for her, so she had to drum up something else. So she has decided to pick a fight with Charleston County Sheriff Kristen Graziano. And of course, no big surprise, she's going, back to, the classics, what works best for her and her Republican Party, which is trying to make a story out of immigration, good old fashioned racism. Oh no, the people from not our country are criminals and horrible people, and be scared, be scared. They're eating our pets. Okay, that was Trump. But Mace decided, hey, that will probably get me some recognition. And so she tried to make this story about how Sheriff Graziano is, just letting criminals who are from other countries and are undocumented just go free all willy nilly. And if she was trying to pick a fight with someone, Sheriff Graziano is not the person to do that. She was not having it. So specifically, Sheriff Graziano, after these accusations from Mace, did not hold back when she was speaking to the media. Again, this is all over allegations that the Charleston County Sheriff's Office is releasing undocumented immigrants accused of crimes from the Al Cannon Detention Center. So Graziano, who is running for re-election, so this is another reason I'm sure Mace brought this up, because Graziano is up for re-election, and of course she'll be running against a Republican whose name is Carl Ritchie. So that's probably another reason she's trying to bring attention to this race where there really isn't a lot of people like really paying attention to it. It's the sheriff's political race. So a lot of people don't even think about it. They don't really know how sheriffs differ, and it's down ballot race. So this could be what she, meaning Mace, and the Republican Party need to potentially scare people into voting for Carl Ritchie instead. So in any event, Graziano blasted Mace, saying, quote, that Mace is full of shit, end quote. And like I said, she didn't hold back. She went on to say, quote, she is in a position where she controls Congress and has failed to do her job and is trying to make her failures our problem. She needs to do her damn job and let law enforcement do ours. She is a liar and this is reckless, end quote. Told you. You don't want to mess with her. And yeah, that's, I couldn't have said it better myself. So this all started when Mace sent a letter to the sheriff's office back on September 24th. She accused the agency of ignoring immigration holds from the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, which are requests to law enforcement to detain a person for up to 48 hours before releasing them, to give ICE time to take custody and potentially remove that person from the country. Representative Mace, who, yes, surprise, surprise, even though she would do this even if she wasn't up for re-election, is seeking a third term representing South Carolina's 1st congressional district. If you're wondering, she's running against Michael B. Moore. So anyway, Representative Mace further claimed that the sheriff's office had released illegal immigrants into the community, and by doing so was, quote, purposefully putting local residents at risk, end quote. Mace also alleged that the sheriff's office has ignored dozens of detainer requests since 2021, noting that the agency is labeled as being an uncooperative institution by ICE. That designation is shared by more than 550 institutions nationwide, according to a report in June that News 2 was able to take a look at and use for this story. Amber Allen, when speaking to News 2, she's actually a spokesperson for the sheriff's office, disputed the claims on Wednesday. She said, quote, "We are still researching what she," talking about Mace, "is alluding to. We are confident that if something did happen regarding that incident, that we follow policy and procedure," end quote. Now, what she's referencing there, besides just the general accusations, Mace tried to use one specific example, claiming that a undocumented migrant, excuse me, undocumented immigrant migrant, I forget what she said specifically, but actually she probably said illegal alien, knowing her, had been let free and committed some, like, some kind of sex crime against a minor. And you know she was trying to say that this shouldn't have happened, like this person should have still been in jail and blah blah blah. And so that's a specific allegation that Alan's talking about, basically saying we're not too sure what the hell she's talking about. That's my words, not Alan's, of course, but we're going to look into it. um, she also responded, or Graziano, I should say, responded to Mace's letter before the spokesperson put out that quote, and said that she was adamant that her agency has not released a detainee without a judge's order, nor have they refused any orders, and suggested that Mace was mischaracterizing events for political gain. Shock, gasp. Could you believe Nancy Mace would do such a thing? So they're refuting everything that Mace is alleging. If you want to know, right now there are actually 13 individuals that are at the Al Cannon Detention Center that are currently on hold by an immigration judge. So that doesn't really help Mace's case that they currently have 13 people being detained by, the way that they're supposed to be doing these things. So it seems that Mace is kind of trying to conflate things. Like, maybe there was the crime she mentioned, but does that mean the sheriff's office did something wrong? Not necessarily. No one seems to be able to, find out what the hell she's talking about so far. But she might be conflating it with something that Graziano did when she first took over the sheriff's position when she was voted in. There is a optional agreement that is called a 287G agreement between sheriff's offices and ICE, and she decided to end that agreement when she first took office. Now, it's an optional agreement, and participating law enforcement agencies select members to be trained to perform some limited functions of an immigration officer. So that's part of it. So in rescinding that, and one of the reasons was they said it was very costly, and I'll get to that in a moment. But they also said when this is Alan now, the spokesperson, saying that when that change happened, when they rescinded that 287G agreement, they decided to require ICE to have an immigration judge's signature in order for someone to be put on a detainer or on a hold in the facility. So basically, instead of just automatically holding these people for 48 hours, they rescind this agreement, which included that designation, and said, hey, we just are going to require an immigration judge's signature, make sure things are on the up and up and we're doing the right thing. And that's what this big change is. And so it seems that's what Mace is trying to say, like, oh, they're making the community more dangerous by rescinding this agreement and not cooperating with ICE, and et cetera, et cetera. So Allen, the spokesperson, said the federal government does not cover the entire cost of participating in that program, and Charleston County taxpayers were left footing the remainder of the bill. And she said that was one of the primary reasons that the agreement was ended. And just for knowledge base, there's actually only 3 jurisdictions in South Carolina, Horry, Lexington, and York counties, that currently have a 287G agreement in place. So this isn't some weird thing that only Charleston County is doing. There's only 3 counties in South Carolina that are participating with this agreement. And there could be any number of reasons. And again, it could be a money thing for these other counties, or they just might not think it's something they need to be doing. So again, Mace is trying to make something that isn't really that big of a deal. It's a lot of other counties are doing it. But that won't matter. Any attention is good attention. She's happy to have it. I'm sure she's hoping this gets her some more FaceTime on TV, as the big talk, of course, is Haitian immigrants in places like Springfield, Ohio. That's the far right talking point right now. And that's the catnip for that part of the base. So in any event, Mace has demanded copies of all communications between ICE and the Charleston County Sheriff's Office. She gave them an October 15th deadline. She has not specified what action, if any, she would take if the documentation is not provided by then. So we'll see if the Sheriff's Office goes along with this or not, and what happens from there. One of the last things in the article is Mace saying that she says, quote, "I believe all whistleblowers," end quote, which sounds nice, but it's, kind of funny because not whistleblowers per se, because they weren't, when you think of a whistleblower, it's someone saying, hey, this company or a person I work for or whatever isn't doing things that they should be. They're breaking the law. But we've seen Macy Mance's campaign staff and any other staff she has crazy turnover. And they all have these stories about how it's horrible to work for her and how she's only out for herself and doesn't actually care about legislating. She just wants to be like a celebrity. Uh, you know, Again, not whistleblowers, but, people speaking out about a boss who is a nightmare to work for. She refutes all of those accusations. So she doesn't really believe all whistleblowers, of course, just the ones that are politically advantageous. So I will say this. If it comes out that whatever Mace was talking about with this supposed, this crime that took place, and if the sheriff's office did do something wrong, I'll absolutely call it out and say if they did something wrong and et cetera. But there's been no proof of that. There's been the media, the sheriff's office, Mace. No one has said any other details about this. So you can't really talk about that. But if that changes, certainly will. We'll give you an update. But for now, it just seems like I said, the catnip right now is demonizing immigrants, and scaring people, thinking that they're all these criminals from other countries are here and wreaking havoc all over the country. And just like anything, there's always going to be outliers. There's always going to be, yes, I'm sure you listening right now, whoever you are, could find a story right now about an undocumented person committing a crime in this country. It happens. There's no doubt about that. Just like an American citizen born and raised here commits crimes as well. It's certainly not an out of control problem. You can also look this up. Multiple sources have said that crime involving undocumented immigrants is down, and percentage-wise is lower than crimes committed by American citizens. So completely fabricated, just like the eating the pets thing. But it's working for a certain segment of the population, and so it's no surprise that she latched onto this because it would, one, get her attention, two, help drum up some possible voters for the sheriff's race, so they will vote for Richie, which obviously she would prefer because they're in the same party. No surprise there. So that's what it seems to be. But again, if something changes, she provides some actual proof, or the sheriff's office turns over some communications and there's something damning in there, absolutely, I will call them out on that. But for now, this seems to be a whole lot of nothing except National Nancy trying to get some attention. Sticking in the politics, we've talked about school boards, specifically Charleston County School Board, how much of a nightmare it's been since the majority of the board turned out to be a bunch of Moms for Liberty backed candidates. They just kind of do whatever they want all the time with really no consequences or fear because they're in the majority. So a lot of people leading up to that election were asking, hey, who's backed by Moms for Liberty? Unfortunately, despite that information getting out there, they still took over the majority of the board. But people are, a little bit more hip to the whole Moms for Liberty thing this time around. And so happy to pass along some information for you. The Charleston County Democratic Party, their executive committee voted to recommend some candidates in this year's Charleston County school board races. So these are people who are not backed by Moms for Liberty and are backed by the Charleston County Democratic Party. So if you're someone who wants to get the Moms for Liberty activists off the board, these would be the people you want to vote for. In District 2, which covers portions of East Cooper, they recommend Carolina Jewett. For District 4, which is North Charleston and downtown Charleston, and portions of those, they recommend Craig Logan. District 6, which is portions of West Ashley, they say incumbent Darren Lee Calhoun is their recommendation. Side note there, he's the incumbent, as I mentioned. He's running against two other people, one of which is Michelle Lieber, who is State Representative Matt Lieber's wife. Lieber is an extreme right-wing guy who at one point was a self-described, I forget if it was like 3%er or Oath Keeper, one of those extremist groups. There's old interviews that are out there with him saying that he's a member of these groups. In any event, his wife is one of the people running. So yes, no surprise, she has some of the same extreme views he does. In fact, she is one of the quote honored guests at this luncheon that this weird fringe group is putting on in an effort to quote unquote save the John C. Calhoun Monument and the Robert E. Lee marker that was removed from the property of a school. So she's an honored guest at an event dedicated to, wanting to save monuments from racists who were on the wrong side of history. So that tells you all you need to know there. So vote Darren Lee Calhoun if you were in District 6. And the last recommendation was District 8, which is places like Edisto Island, Hollywood, Johns Island, Ravenel, Wadmala Island, and portion of James Island. They recommend incumbent Darlene Dunmeyer Roberson. So those are the folks that the Charleston County Democratic Party has endorsed. So if you want someone who will get the board back to normal business, not fight these culture wars, and just get rid of these Moms for Liberty folks. Now, unfortunately, not all the Moms for Liberty people are up for re-election, so some are still going to be there. But there are some that align with that organization that are running against the people I just mentioned. So if you want to get rid of those people, the people I mentioned are the ones you'll want to vote for, depending on what district you're in, of course. If you didn't have a chance to write those down or you're going to forget, there's a link in the show notes where you can save that when it's your time to go vote. And the last story on this Friday, we have an update to the very sad story involving the police dog death that happened in Dorchester County. A Dorchester County sheriff's deputy has been demoted following the death of his police dog. That happened back in July. And the officer, we finally know his name. It had not been released. The officer's name is Brandon Edwards. He was demoted from master deputy to deputy on September 12th. This is according to personnel files that were obtained from the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy, and they were obtained by the Post and Courier. So back on July 28th, a 5-year-old police dog was found dead in Edwards' patrol vehicle. Apparently, Edwards had left his dog unattended and without the temperature controls operating. So it would seem he just left this dog in a police car with no AC and the windows up. Maybe the windows were cracked. It doesn't say, but that doesn't matter if the AC is not going, of course, especially in July, late July in Charleston or in South Carolina. So those actions did lead to that demotion. However, the officials with the Dorchester County Sheriff's Office turned the case over to the State Law Enforcement Division, aka SLED, for a separate investigation into the dog's death. They turned that over to SLED in late August. So for violating department policy, Edwards received a pay reduction and was transferred out of the K-9 unit. That's a good move. And he is now on what's called administrative assignment, whatever the hell that means. I guess maybe he's just behind a desk and not actually out patrolling and things. This is all according to the notice of disciplinary action the Post and Courier got a hold of. So the SLED investigation is still ongoing. A post-mortem examination of the dog was scheduled following, this incident. There hasn't been any update on that yet. I guess the plan here is results from that post-mortem examination and any other additional information on the case will be released upon completion of the SLED investigation. So once SLED wraps it up, we'll hopefully have all the details of what exactly happened, and there may be charges that police officer will be subject to, depending on what they rule. So sad story. At least we're getting some more information after, for a while there, it felt like there really wasn't any, the sheriff's office was not very forthcoming with things. So at least we're getting more information and we know where this thing stands at the moment. And hopefully SLED will wrap up their investigation before too long. It certainly seems like a demotion and being moved to administrative assignment and being removed from the K-9 unit are the least that the sheriff's office could have done. Like I said, there could be charges, like animal cruelty, something along those lines. It's potential, for leaving the dog in a hot car. We would think maybe there's some more coming, but we'll see, and I'll certainly keep you updated. That'll do it for this edition of Holy City Sinner Radio. I hope you have a good weekend. I know the weather might put a damper, no pun intended, on potential plans. You can go to holycitycenter.com/calendar to see what is going on this weekend. However, keep in mind that although I do my best to update that calendar, I don't always get alerted when events are canceled, or, I find out later or whatever. So just if you see something on there, and it'd be a huge deal for you if you went to go do whatever that plan is and you find out it's canceled. Be sure to check with the venue or the promoter or whoever. Be sure to check with someone related to that event before traveling. And obviously, if the weather's bad, uh, I would imagine many of these events will be canceled, and you probably shouldn't be traveling anyway. So use your best judgment, of course. But yes, say the weather clears up, it's safe to drive. There are some plans going on, but you're not sure if the one you're interested in is happening. Be sure to contact someone before heading out there. We don't want that to happen, of course. But most importantly, stay safe, stay dry, pay attention, like I said, to all local weather things. We should be okay, fingers crossed. I know, famous last words, right? But, we were fine with the last storm, but there were some incidents, couple small tornadoes around the area and flash flooding that could be dangerous, and could have been a lot worse. So be safe out there. Don't get complacent with these things, even if like I said, it seems like we're going to be fine. But always err on the side of caution with these type of events. You just never know. I will talk to you again next week. But before that, I got to say thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Soundsystem, who produces this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And a big thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show. As I said, I'll talk to you next week. Stay safe. Until then, good night and good luck.